Alright, so hello world, welcome back to another tutorial on the TheCodeBakery. So today we're going to keep talking about web development with HTML and CSS. And so now what will be accomplished is we can do some basic formatting. But there's still one thing that you didn't know, is form. Odds are that you fill out a form at least once. Either it's a Google form or some other kind of registration form. Or also you create a form before. So now I'm going to talk about how to create a form from scratch. A warning though, it's going to look really ugly and it's not going to work. We'll talk about form processing when we get to backend development with Python, So let's go ahead and get started. By the way, I just realized we can use Emmet. This is a shortcut basically, so it generate all the stuff for you. So now you can see it's have a char set. It's UTF-8. UTF-8 is a general char set. The how the character is written in, and this just makes sure it's also generally mobile responsive. Let's go ahead and create a title. By the way, title is just the file name right here. You don't put the title, it's just going to be your file name. So if I put a title saying form, and now you can see it's refreshed to form. Alright, so now let's go ahead and put some real contents here. Let's go ahead and create h1 tag saying form. So the form tag, first is you need to initialize a new form tags, which you can do simply using form. We are going to use form tag. And then here there's some important attribute I want you to know. For example, what is an attribute? Well, for a meta tag, as in here, because the name is an attribute to the meta tag, content is an attribute to the meta tag. So an attribute is basically how we provide more detail about this thing. So there's two important things that you're probably going to see usually in the form. So we have an action and method. So I will briefly talk about what these two attributes is for. So action is how do you want your form to be processed. A method is what kind of HTTP method do you want the form to be processed. They are complicated. I'm throwing some big word at you, but just realize that for now, we're just going to leave it blank. Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll start to add some fields. So now if you refresh the page, you'll see absolutely nothing happened because there's supposed to be nothing. And now we're going to create a new input. So before I do that, so recall that a Google form is made up just by a bunch of fields. Either it's multiple choice, fill in, or a range or a scale or some other multiple choices. So we're gonna learn how to create a fill-in. So you will use an input as your opening tag, and then in here you can say input type. So you can see there's lots of type you can consider. Button, checkbox, color, date, datetime, local, email, file, hidden, image, month, number, password, radio, range, reset, search, submit, tell, text, time, URL, and week. So for this, the best to fit is text. To be honest with you, the most common tag is actually text, number, range, checkbox, radio button, radio. That's about it. Okay, so now you can see input type equals text. And now if we try to refresh this, you can see, whoa, we have a input type here. But what if we want the user to know what should the information goes here? Like, do you want your first name goes here, last name goes here, your age, date of birth, or stuff like that? There's two ways to do that. The first is easy way, where you can just add a placeholder to the input type. And then here, what I would just say is your first name. And now if we refresh, you can see now in here, we have a light gray. We have a light gray text saying first name. Okay. This is what placeholder does. Or we can also consider using label, which label used to describe. Usually label takes a for attribute, and I'm just gonna say first name, and then I'm gonna give it here an ID. Recall, ID is just a way to represent or to tag information. So now refresh, nothing happened because it didn't put any description here, so I can say fill out your first name here. Refresh. Now you can see this label goes to here. And now you can fill out your first name. Alright, but what if you want to restrict some field to only accept a number? So right now this can be like whatever. This can be just be a text. What if you want to restrict this to only be a number? Well, we can use input type number, which this will restrict a number for you. And then if you want to be even a little bit more extreme on this, you can specify the minimum value and the maximum value. For example, I can say minimum value is 1, maximum value is 100. So I probably will say label for lucky number. Pick a number between 1 to 100. And then let me just give an ID, lucky number here. And then if you refresh, now you could see is that pick a random number between 1 to 100. And now you can see you have a little arrow here that goes all the way up to, you guessed it, 100 because it's the maximum value. Or you can also type. Now you can see nothing just appear on the screen beside the E because sometimes it means exponent, which can be considered as a number. But excuse me, because I'm hitting the A key, but nothing shows up because it's restricted to the number only. Now you can see this form looks really ugly. Like pick a number between 1 to 100. Probably want to make a new line. To make a new line, we will use a BR attribute for line break. Excuse me. And then put it here. Refresh. Now you can see fill out your first name here. First name, pick a number between 1 to 100. 1. How about that? Just first name. Alright. Pick a number between 1 to 100. Next, what you could do is you could use a radio button. So recall that we also have some radio button. So like multiple choice. How can we do that? We can do that by using input type equals radio. And now if you refresh, you can see a radio button get created. And now what we could say is we could give some value or create more radio button off this. Not going to spend much time with radio button. So next what I'm going to talk about is checkbox, which you could do like this, and now you get a little tiny checkbox that you could put your information in. Alright, but lastly, when you have a form, the ultimate most important part, is not about any of these. It's actually about how could you submit a form. So, how could I submit a form? Well, I could submit a form by input type equals submit. And now notice that you need to give your value. I can just say submit the form. And now if you refresh, now you could see, whoops. Yeah, so now you can see submit the form. Probably I want to make a new line here. Line break. Looks fantastic. Okay, so this is the first way to create a button. Second way to create a button is actually using the button tag. So you can say button type equals to button. And then you could type submit the form. Not really. So what's happening here is if you specify type to button, it's not actually submit the form. It's actually don't submit the form, but the button still clicked. When we're learning about JavaScript, we'll talk about how can we use form processing in JavaScript. But you continue to submit if you want to submit a form. Now you can see to button. Alright, so that's it for form processing introduction. We will talk about form processing again when we talk about CSS and backend form processing. Thanks for watching this TheCodeBakery tutorial. Please like and subscribe if you want to. And as always, thank you for watching.